What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. This is a little clip out from the Beckett interview that I did with Scott Roskind, the Chief Visionary Officer, last week. It's about a 5 or 6 minute clip. It's not very long. I wanted to pull it out because it was pretty late in the interview. It was about 3/4 of the way through, and it was when Scott discussed some of the thought processes and ideas behind how they're beginning to think about working on a new slab. Give some hints and clues on some things that they're working at. Obviously, he cannot give specific details. It does still sound like it is a pretty ways off, but it is good to hear them working on it. And it sounds like they are going to take some community feedback as well, potentially. I'm not sure what that'll look like, but I encourage you to listen to this little 5 or 6 minute clip just in case you missed it on the main interview, since it was pretty late in. And I know it is a big ask to have people sit through a 40 to 60 minute long interview, even if it is pretty good information. If you missed the rest of it, I do encourage you to circle back to it. There is a lot of other great nuggets in there, but I wanted to specifically call attention to this one because I thought it was one of the more interesting talking points that we discussed during our conversation. So on to the clip. Catch you guys and girls on the next one. But you guys are at least actively looking. I feel like every grading company probably is to some degree, but that is something that is on your guys' radar. Because I asked the audience for questions a couple days ago, and pretty much every single one of them centered around some version of mostly security and security enhancements, anti-forgery, fraud, that sort of stuff. Slab redesign, inner sleeve. Some people like it, some hate it. The scuffing that sometimes happens. Basically almost every viewer question kind of centered around that sort of stuff. So I'll let you just kind of touch on whatever you want to touch on in regards to potential slab changes or designs.
Sure. So we are working on something. I've spent part of my day today on it. It's going to take a little bit. There's going to be a lot of thought that goes into it. It's been in the works for a little bit now. And let's start from the inside out. So the sleeve is definitely the sleeve is great. It's another differentiator for us. We all like it and think it's important. It really protects the card. I have hundreds of Beckett cases. I've got PSA, I've got all of them. And I see what people are talking about, that sometimes they get a little scuffed and it's a little harder to see the card. It's not as crystal clear as probably we all would like it in some ways. But it's still, very protective and does a lot of good things, I think, in general. But we'll be improving that piece. I don't think that you'll see a massive change in the size or shape of the case or anything like that. But you will see some different security features, as you just said, and it goes from the case to the label, across the board. That'll definitely change. There'll definitely be some great things there in the future, but it's not happening overnight. So it's a little bit of a ways away. But we're working on things. I think everybody, whether you're constantly improving a website or pieces of your website, you have to continue to improve things. Everything evolves over time. When building a technology company, it's a living, breathing thing. I look at it almost the same way across products. So when we launch Collect, you'll see it'll be one thing. We'll get feedback. We'll keep iterating. We'll change. We have 1,000 ideas of what we want to do with that platform. It'll just, it's a living, breathing thing. I think the cases, they haven't been redone in quite some time, and it's time for them to evolve a little bit. And you see the competitors are doing some good things for sure on the label side, especially. And we have to get there as well. So we'll be doing that. It'll happen.
Yeah, I can't imagine the undertaking that must be to vet out all the things that you have to go through. Some that are like common sense things that, like I probably talked about in videos, and then probably things that us as just like an average collector would never even think of or consider when it comes to either redesigning a case or designing a case from the ground up. the amount of meetings that's probably involved in that is probably substantial.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think there's always going to be a lot of hesitancy to some degree. Oh, it's working, kind of a thing, which it does, and I love the cases. Um, so I think they're great. They're To me, they make it feel like there's a real asset inside the case. They're substantial. Um, they don't bend. They're not flexible cases. They're really, really sturdy. Um, so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of good things about it. So it's sort of like if it isn't broken, don't fix it type of a thing. And it's not broken. Um, but there's always things you can do to improve things. The question is
Yeah.
how will folks react to it? We will definitely be out there working with some folks to do some surveys. We're not going to do this, inside of a conference room. And with the only people looking at these things are people that work for the company. We're definitely going to, share and do some focus groups and things like that. So we'll do some of that too, but we definitely want to open it up to make sure that we're doing the right thing because it's a big deal. It's a big deal. But I think we'll have some really nice improvements. Some of them are simple.
Yeah. Yeah. The Beckett case, I think, like the form factor, and to your point, like it does feel like when you have it in your hand, it definitely feels different than any other slab out there. And it's almost like it's like an old house. Like the bones are good. It just needs like maybe a new kitchen and a fresh coat of paint. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to rework it from the ground up. You just need to take the existing structure and kind of, fresh coat of paint on a car or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, we have a new brand identity that was done. It was done in March. I guess it was launched at the Mint Collective also. So we have that to look at. So there's a bunch of things, and that goes across the board. But so some of those things come into play as well.